Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
My first guest is an outstanding broadcaster doing live radio and phone-in radio since the 1980s. He's worked at national level as well, NBC. He's been blogging and writing and talking, challenging the mainstream narrative for years. We often catch him on RT America. He's a terrific commentator, very pithy, very savvy, very witty, and often hilariously funny. And I said today on Twitter, and I meant it, he's razor sharp as well. It's been a long time since he was on, and it seems like since he was last on, the world has been turned upside down and bounced around a bit like an old basketball. Let's welcome back to the programme our old friend Lionel. How are you, mate? Good to have you back on.
Oh, I'm doing finer than frog hair. Such an honor to be with you, my good friend.
I tell you what, we've got about 25 minutes. It's not enough, really. We're going to try and plough through a few things. It is a real pleasure to have you back on. And by the way, folks, Lionel's YouTube channel is Lionel Nation. I'm going to send a link to Twitter to that. Lionel Nation is his YouTube channel. Some terrific information and videos on there. So subscribe to it now if you are on YouTube regularly. Listen, I got in touch with you today. Like a great sport, you came back to me very quickly.
Certainly.
Since then, Wikileaks has published details of what it says are massive hacking tools used by the CIA. Edward Snowden has tweeted that he thinks this is genuine. The cybersphere has gone mad. Everybody's jumping in on this. I'm not sure there's anything new in what we've heard today, but I know you're interested in it because you've talked a lot in recent days about Trump's claims that the deep state have been targeting him and Obama and all of that. So what do you make of that, WikiLeaks and the CIA, straight off the bat, Lionel?
Well, first of all, the most important aspect about this is that this Vault 7 drop is the most interesting because this shows you CIA cyber warfare adopts specifically, and this is what's critical. It shows the incredible, this beyond startling revelation of how the CIA, under a project which they've identified as Umbrage, basically had, if you will, imagine a library of Russian-style attack MOs and the like. The best example is there have been many, many cases in the past of unscrupulous police officers who will drop what is called a throwdown weapon. They shoot somebody by accident, and they'll drop a weapon. They'll say, oh, look, he had a gun. Or, I know, for example, I know every bullet, and I can match ballistics. I can create the appearance by knowing how malware looks, what has been produced in other states, including the Russian Federation. I can, if I'm CIA, go in and make it look like Russians hacked into, let's say, election computers or what have you, or that Trump computers and Russian computers were speaking or were connected, because I can leave the cyber fingerprint. When I do that, and I've created this false perception, this false narrative of, aha, Trump and the Russians in cahoots. Then I go to the FISA courts, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act courts, and I can have wiretaps issued. And I can then turn and through plausible deniability say, look, here's the evidence, here's Russia. And of course, keep in mind, this is the most important part. You see, Richie, there are two spheres, two parallel universes here, at least in the States, and I'm sure you as well. We have the mainstream media, the alt-left, anti-Trump, sock puppet, echo chamber, cookie cutter world that basically is just, they're into a narrative that is fed to them by either the deep state or the intelligence apparatus or whatever you want to call it, the ruling class. Then you have people like yourself, like me, like others, people in the alternative and foreign media platforms who, by the way, have supplanted conventional mainstream media as the go-to sources. So what's happening right now is the world the internets, as someone once called it, that we involve ourselves in, this marvelous and wonderful platform. Richie, we're going crazy. But instead, if you go and you listen to our own MSDNC, as I call it, or CNN, it's crickets. They're not covering it all because they've been told specifically, stay away from this. So what's happening is that this provides a look into how the Obama administration basically obtained FISA permission to basically conduct electronic surveillance on Russians and Trump, whatever. Let me just say something very quickly before I forget. The FISA court, for those people who don't know this, is a rubber stamp act. I'm a lawyer by profession and was a prosecutor. The way we normally get a warrant in a criminal investigation, we go to a judge or a magistrate. And I say that I have probable cause to believe that Richie Allen was involved in some kind of nefarious criminal activity. And I show some threshold evidence of criminality. The judge finds probable cause. They issue the warrant. And I go in and I either search your residence or your car or whatever it is. FISA courts work differently. They wanted at least to veneer the appearance of some kind of judicial review, but they didn't want to go and make the government explain exactly how a foreign national government was involved in espionage or something that affected national security. So the joke was there was never the case. In fact, you can Google it right now. I should have the fact in front of me right now, but I don't. And I apologize. But out of the thousands and thousands of applications for FISA warrants, which again apply to listening devices and surveillance devices put on other foreign entities, foreign jurisdictions, foreign people, they were never turned down. They were never denied. Never. Except in this case, when they were approached to basically monitor Donald Trump and his hardware, his computers and the like, they turned the government down, which caused them to reapply. So what all this gobbledygook means is simply this. Donald Trump is a genius. He's a crazy genius. He's a mad genius. He comes across like this boorish, crazy Twitter lunatic at 3 a.m, this raging bull, crazed, maniacal, a loose cannon. And yet, when he does something, it's brilliant. He said, quote, "You guys are tapping me. You're wiretapping me." Upon which Obama and his surrogate said, "Oh, that's ridiculous." Lo and behold, Vault 7. And he's not crazy anymore.
Right, let me be the devil's advocate here.
Sure.
Can't fault any of that, but what the Vault 7 leaks, and none of us have had the chance to go through them extensively yet, but it doesn't appear that contained within them is definitive proof that Trump was being listened to and was being monitored by. Now, I'm not saying he wasn't, Lionel, but there doesn't seem to be any definitive proof of it, right?
No, of course. No. No, you're right. You're absolutely correct. It shows the mechanisms by which he could be.
Yeah.
It shows, basically, it gives a potential hackers. Here is a list of all of the malware, Russian mimicry that they had available, that they could use, that they had at their employ. Now, we go a step further. The bottom line is simply this. In our system of justice and in the natural world, it is not my job to disprove allegations when I, as a citizen, am being, let's say, followed or surveilled or whatever by a government agency. Once that threshold, once I say, hey, are you tapping me? Then the court of public opinion and others demand that the government say, well, come forward. So you're absolutely correct. Now, let me go, and I'll be devil's advocate. You know, as the great Gore Vidal said one time, Richie, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy analyst. And there's a part of me that says, wait a minute. How come nobody's figured out who WikiLeaks really is, where they come from, how this was purloined?
Marvelous.
Where do you mean to tell me that this monster intelligence organization, NSA, nicknamed no such agency, that has a brute force disencryption system that I mean boggles the mind. They don't know where this is coming from. If one of your staff members, if there is something in the vault of the Richie Allen Show that, God forbid, makes its way out into the real world, and you say, I know who it is.
Yeah.
It's Seamus, that bastard. All right. You know you know exactly. So I'm wondering, is there a rogue element within CIA or NSA? Is this a limited hangout? Why? How is it? I mean, they don't just release, the Podesta emails, emails. It seems like there is an endless font, a spigot of information. So I'm very incredulous and very skeptical about that as well.
Are we being distracted? Because I mentioned at the top of the program, never been a name dropper, but I've interviewed the WikiLeaks guys. I've had Kristen Rafton on the program some years ago and got into a bit of a spat with him. It was an ugly interview, actually, because I was having a go with him over Chelsea Manning, saying that I didn't think they did very much to help her or him as he was then. And then we got into, well, what are you guys really telling us? And are you telling us anything that we didn't know before? It didn't go down very well, as you might imagine. So are we being distracted by this? I mean, we know.
Well, perhaps.
Sure. While other stuff is going on.
Oh, could be. I mean, listen, all of us are amateur sleuths, of course. We're investigating at our own pace. Nobody's handing this. We're following the breadcrumbs. Look, you mentioned something called limited hangout. There's a lot about, one of the best ways to tell whether something is indeed a limited hangout is ask yourself the question, who is embarrassed here?
Absolutely.
When Snowden came out and Assange and others, if you see, for example, all of our, quote, enemies are exposed. For example, if you, again, let's go back to my hypothetical. You and I work together and someone breaks into the Richie Allen Show archives, and the only thing that's released is pictures of you in the feather boa at the Christmas party,
yeah.
You and your innermost thoughts, you and your intimate, not me. Nothing about me is released. And you say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me that I'm the... So we always, listen, we are very, very aware of the double cross. But here's the bottom line. This is what we need to think and what we're seeing right here. Right now, there is a palace coup, if you will. There is something that is so nefarious. Call it deep state, call it state within a state, call it ruling class, military intelligence, intelligence, whatever. Because I want everybody listening to your great, great family to understand this around the world, because you may not be as familiar with this as we are here. Donald Trump poses an existential threat to the mainstream media, to the intelligence organizations, and more importantly, to NATO. Understand what he does. NATO, as you know, Richie, is a billion dollar organization that basically is the lifeblood, the cardiac system of the military-industrial complex.
Absolutely.
Anything that gets in the way of that, anything that dares to call into question the legitimacy of the threat of Russia or Putin, anything that dares to neutralize or put it this way, call into question the necessity of NATO. That's what Donald Trump is. First thing he said was, I'm going to talk with Putin. I don't want a friend, I want a partner. Oh my God. Wait a minute. Sound the klaxon. This cannot be. Now, another thing. The gold standard right now, in the old days, we had ex-presidents here in this country. We had Jimmy Carter. Oh, bless his heart. He built some houses and pretty much harmless. Ronald Reagan, he gave a couple of speeches. He gave a speech one time to Japan for Japanese businessmen, got $2 million. I thought they were going to, hang him. Well, here comes Bill Clinton and the NGO, the Clinton Global Initiative, the Clinton Foundation, and the Clinton Health Access Initiative is basically an unprosecuted criminal cartel at the clip of $100 billion. I mean, he absolutely is wow. But the gold standard, the Mac Daddy of how to exist after the fact is Tony Blair. Tony Blair is an industry all his own. He's the gold standard. Tony Blair is the go-to guy. Hey, Tony, we NATO friends need you here. No problem. Hey, Tony, can you smooth something out over here? No problem. Hey, Tony. Well, Barack Obama said, terrific, Tony. Move over. Barry's here. Watch me. Watch Mr. Smooth. Watch what I can do. They just gave him a $60 million book deal.
That's right. But Lionel, on Blair, why is Jared... Let me ask you two questions in the one. Why is Jared Kushner meeting Tony Blair 3 times, including a 3-hour summit at the White House last week? And question number two, which is also part of that. H.R. McMaster is, to quote Paul Craig Roberts today, Russophobic. Now, Paul and I got into a couple of heavy debates about Trump pre the election and post the election, and Paul was backing him heavily. And he's come out today and written an article, Paul, basically saying that I've gotten it wrong. The first few weeks of Trump's presidency suffice to make it clear that there will be no change this time either. And he laments the appointments of McMaster, who I mentioned, H.R. Mattis, Fiona Hill, worse than Victoria Nuland, Samantha Power and Susan Rice. Right. I mean, now I've been saying this forever and a day. What do you make of that? I mean, I liked when Trump was saying, who are we to talk about, crimes against humanity and all of that.
Okay. All right. First of all, did you say Paul Joseph Watson? Is that what you said?
Oh, God, no, not him. No, Paul Craig Roberts.
Oh, Paul Craig Roberts. Okay, Paul Craig. Oh, yeah. Paul Craig Roberts, he's a fascinating man. You got to figure out and say, where is he? Where does he stand on this? Look, I don't really know. All I know is simply this. Jared Kushner, these are businessmen. And they think, you see, one of the things that Trump is he's a businessman, and he says, we talk to everybody. Enemies, friends, I don't give a damn. Let's make a deal. Let's talk. And he really is like that. That's who he is.
But he didn't say that in the run-up to the election outline. Let's be honest. He never said that. He said he was going to drain the swamp. There's going to be no more swamp, no more dealing with these people.
Absolutely. Right? He also talked about building a wall. I still don't know how the hell you're going to build a wall. He also talked about, he was talking at first about he wanted to torture people. Then they say, whoa, wait a minute, hold it. So believe me, he said some things that, sounded terrific. And now after the fact, you sit back and wonder, how does he plan to do this? Look, there are people out there. If you think for 1 minute that Kelly and McMaster and Flynn, Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis, these guys are Pentagon hardcore neocon warmongers. I mean, these guys, when you see the world, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Yeah. And if you're a surgeon, all you want to do is cut. And if your whole world has been training your entire adult life how to kill people and blow things up, and then all of a sudden you're going to segue into the negotiation world of peace? Come on.
Why were they appointed then?
Pardon me?
Why were they appointed then? You've just described them perfectly. I couldn't do it any better myself.
Because he has to. He's got a lot of friends here. Why do you think he picked Mike Pence? That's the guy that I'm the most distrustful of. This guy scares the hell out of me. Look, he had to make a deal. Trump had, when Trump made his first address before Congress in his joint, there wasn't anybody, with the exception of his family, there wasn't anybody in that chamber who likes him. Nobody likes him. So look, he has got to hire and associate with some people from the old guard, from the new guard, from this guard, from the left guard, from the what he needs is a Praetorian guard, because he needs somebody to watch his back. What I heard was when Pence basically went to NATO and said, hey, listen, don't worry about it. Everything's okay. Everything will be fine. Don't worry about it. Ooh, I get scared with that one.
Yeah, me and you both, yeah.
But listen, Richie, if he changes the world by 10%, do you know that I have friends of mine who are Marxists? I have other people who are rock-ribbed right-wing conservatives. Both of them love Trump. I'm thinking, how in the hell did this happen? Trump was the first guy ever to talk about jobs. Just talk about them. This is a guy who poses, like I said, an existential threat. Now he's making a lot of mistakes. Number one, he doesn't have a Jim Baker there. He needs the guy who knows how to negotiate Washington. He needs somebody who knows where all the bodies are buried, how everything is done. Trump sometimes thinks, I can do anything. I'm brilliant. I'm smart. Yeah, well, maybe. This is a different story. These people will kill you.
They'll kill him.
Understand what
yeah, sorry, Lionel. One of the things I've, often wondered about it, again, look, he's got to have skeletons in his own closet. He must have. And I want to ask you this as well, because I know we're going to run out of time in a few minutes, and I'm genuinely delighted to have you back on the programme. It's been too long.
Anytime.
Lionel's YouTube channel is Lionel Nation. I've already tweeted out a link to it. Subscribe to it. Tens of thousands of people subscribed there already. It's regularly updated with videos, commentary pieces by Lionel, and sometimes terrific interviews as well. It's really good stuff. Listen, I should have mentioned at the very beginning, mea culpa, your legal background. I should have mentioned that, but I always focus on your broadcasting career because it's been stellar. Let's be honest about it. It's been stellar. You're a funny guy. You're a great broadcaster. I could listen to you all day long.
Bro.
Now, true is right. Now, I would, despite, I've no time for any politician. I've no time for Trump. No time for any of them. I feel, and I'm not talking about you, and I wasn't talking about Robert Steele when I interviewed him last night, but a lot of people, justified in their hatred for Hillary as they were one of the most criminal human beings ever, let that cloud their judgment, I think. But look, let me just ask you this. I would trust you. If you got to sit down with Trump for 25 minutes, I would trust you to ask him a few questions. Mm-hmm. Where I'm going with this is, isn't it wonderful what he's done to the lying, corrupt, horrible media? Yes, I can understand why people would say it's great to see these lying organisations getting a kicking. But is it really so great? Because as bad as these organisations are, they are dreadful. It should be up to you and me and the public at large to hold them to account, not the sitting power authority of the day. And if Trump is going to dictate to the American people at large through Twitter and Facebook, that's not a two-sided conversation, Lionel. And I don't expect Trump to give any more interviews to the so-called independent media. And even if he were to, I wouldn't trust them to ask him any questions. So who's going to question this guy?
Well, it's a great question. You bring up a very, very good point. First of all, I want to remind folks that today, as we speak, this is the 45th day he has been in office.
That's all.
45. He has been under continuous assault since day one. He was under a particular, and by the way, let me just say something so anybody who's listening doesn't confuse me with some kind of a Trump fanner. I did not vote for him. I voted for me. I wrote my name in. I don't believe in this left-right paradigm, this Democrat-Republican nonsense. I thought for sure Hillary Clinton was going to win because these people are so corrupt. You don't beat the Clintons. Yeah. They own it. They gin the game. They rig the game. But surprise, surprise. I'm going to demand of him. I'm going to say, okay, listen, we gave you a little bit. But listen, you tweeting is basically a form of kind of like a journalistic masturbation. It's a two-way street. So I want somebody to ask you some tough questions. Number two, I want you to make sure that when you say drain the swamp, that you don't basically just shift rearrange the furniture on the Titanic by basically moving in a new neocon and throwing out another. Number three, I don't want you to capitulate. I don't want you to forget what brought you to the game here, what brought you here. And what I believe, number one, the most important, and this is so good, there has been such an attack against Russia. Look, it's been said before. We don't want to be Russia's friend. We want to be their partner. We do not need a new Cold War, which we already have. We do not need to ramp up this Russophobic, Kremlin baiting, this nonsense, this McCarthyism. He's going to stop that. He has already made sure of that. Also, the best part is he has absolutely invigorated life into you and me and alternative and foreign platforms. You understand what he's done to us? He's also put in and manned, if you will, or womaned or personed, to be politically correct, in the White House press corps, people from news organizations that weren't mainstream, which is terrific. So he's allowing more people into the tent, so to speak, who are going to be there. Because the only way that we're going to get the news is a two-way street. Number one, he has to say something, but also it has to be reported. So before before he answers any question, right now he says something and it's not even reported. It doesn't even get there because the mainstream media take what he is saying, and if they don't like what he said, they'll bring up something else that is irrelevant, or they'll obfuscate it, or change it, or amend it, or expurgate it, or fool around with it and change the particular message. So we will see. But what I'm saying is, right now, the good news is that Barack Obama wanted to be the Tony Blair. And what all presidents have, the only thing that they have when they leave and they cherish, and they covet, is their legacy. So this guy has been out of office for 45 days, and already he's been called into question about his NSA. And by the way, we have an internecine fight between CIA and NSA, who is the bigger dog right here. And what we're also having for the first time is we're finally, which is what I and you and others have been telling the world, the devices that you have, your coveted phone, your smart TV, anything that says smart or green in front of it, throw it out. You have been wanting these devices. You basically turned over the ignition, the keys to your privacy, to these corporately owned, these fascist mold, these corporations that have been compromised by the government. And now, because of Wikileaks and Trump to an extent, and Vault 7 and others, and you and me and all their stalwarts, we're showing people around the world front and center that you may not have been born into a world where you've ever known freedom, because a lot of the kids today have been born in captivity, but so many things are changing. We are so much smarter. Do you understand, Richie, in 45 days, how much smarter the world is? Whether it's because of Trump or not, or whatever it is, we've been exposed to what the media are all about. We're really understanding who indeed runs the show, and we're pulling back the curtain to see who is really moving the gears. But we're not done. This is a sick and a fascistic and a corporate-run neoliberal horror show that basically runs this world, and we've got to get to that. But one step at a time.
Lionel, I could talk to you all night. It's brilliant to have you back in the programme. LionelMedia.com is the website, and it's Lionel Nation on YouTube, and I've tweeted a link out there already. Subscribe to Lionel and get his videos. Listen, mate, it was great to have you back on. Thanks for coming on. And
Richie,
continue
anytime,
success.
my good friend. Anytime. All the best.
Legend. Bye for now, Lionel. Bye. The terrific Lionel on the line to us from New York City. Go to YouTube and subscribe to Lionel Nation. Fascinating conversation that.